We have an interesting night this evening. We have, just as a review, on January 25th, we looked at sort of the history of very difficult decision-making here at College Mennonite, focusing on divorce and remarriage and women in leadership. And then on February 1st, we had Bill and Phyllis Miller and Naomi and John Lederach talked from a very personal family perspective. And last Wednesday, Keith Graber Miller talked about the biological basis of sexuality. And this evening, then, we have perspectives from the CMC youth. Yay! And they're going to be sharing some of their thoughts, and Daniel will be leading that. So we're going to run the format sort of like we had in the past, where we're going to have 25 to 30 minutes for them to just respond to some questions that Daniel will bring up. And then I will give you some sort of thinking points, and then you're going to get in small groups and discuss those for the last 15 minutes. And again, after that, if you want to talk to the youth individually or discuss among yourselves, you can. So let's start our meeting this evening with just a word of prayer. Dear God, thank you for being with us this evening, for being here in our midst. Thank you for the youth of College Mennonite Church and all the gifts and all the joys that they bring to us. Thank you for their willingness to be vulnerable and to share this evening. Give us open hearts and minds as we listen to what they have to say. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Okay.
Thank you, Marilyn. Yeah, come on in, have a seat. As we get into this, it seems like the natural way to start is with introductions. So I'm going to have you introduce yourselves. Pass the microphone around. Say your name as a way of making connections, who your parents or grandparents are, just a kind of a way of connecting in. And your grade, name, grade, family connections, and where you go to school. There we go. That works. So, go ahead. And if you could stand up, please.
I'm Savannah Friesen. I'm a sophomore at Goshen High School. My parents are Elise Garber and Jeremy Friesen, and my grandparents are Don and Connie Garber.
I'm Tatiana Friesen. I'm a junior at Northridge High School. My parents are Paul and Bonnie Friesen, and my grandparents are Shirley and Menno Friesen.
I'm Jonah Hostetler. I'm a junior at Bethany, and my mom is Lori Hostetler.
Hi, I'm Ainsley Friesen. My mom is Elise Garber, and my dad's Jeremy Friesen. My grandparents are Don Garber and Connie Garber. I go to Goshen High School, and I'm in 9th grade.
Hi, I'm Madison Swartzen-Juber, and I am a junior at Bethany, and my mom and dad are Karen and Calvin Swartzen-Juber, and my grandpa is Sandy. He runs the sound.
My name is Melissa Bailey. I'm a junior at Northridge High School. My parents are Lisa and Brian Bailey.
I'm Brianna Penner. I'm a senior at Fairfield this year, and my grandparents are Leonard and Lorena Penner, and my dad is Lowell Penner.
I am Simon Hertzler-Gasho. My mom is Julie Hertzler. And my grandparents are John and Carolyn Hertzler.
That's where he gets it.
I'm a 9th grader at Goshen High School, and my favorite ice cream is mint chip.
Good evening. My name is Elsie Coop Lichty. I'm the daughter of Dan and Jill Coop Lichty and the granddaughter of Russ and Marge Lichty. I go to Goshen High School, and I'm a senior.
My name is Laura Scott. I go to Goshen High School. I'm a 9th grader, and my mom is Danielle Scott Dubash, and my dad is Michael Scott.
I'm Sarah Hostetler. I'm a freshman at Bethany, and my mom is Lori Hostetler, and my grandparents are Jim and Nelda Miller.
All right. You can hang on to that, actually. All right. Well, thank you. Kind of give us a little idea of who all's here this evening. To be honest, I wasn't totally sure how to start this time off. And I had an idea, but then Madison is wearing a T-shirt that actually helps get our evening kind of introduced, I think. Yeah, go ahead and stand up. So this was our T-shirt that the MYF made before we went to the convention in Kansas City. So as you can see, it's multicolored. It's a picture of an elephant on the front with Jesus riding the elephant. And as we talked about preparing for convention, knowing that as a church at that point, but also as a denomination, talking about how that LGBTQ inclusion in the church was going to be one of the main topics there, how do we enter into that as a youth group? But at the same time realizing we have people all over the spectrum in terms of beliefs on that topic and many other topics. There were pink minnows at the convention. I mean, there have been at previous conventions, but there were also minnows wearing other colors of T-shirts. And so how can we display a way that kind of includes everybody? So we went with as many colors as we could find. Ended up being tie-dye. But also the idea that this has kind of been an elephant in the room for many years. But there have always been different elephants in the room for the church throughout the history of the church. And through all of that, Jesus has been there as well. Maybe Jesus sometimes is leading the elephant. Maybe sometimes Jesus is actually riding the elephant, trying to get us to pay attention to it and talk about it. And so that's kind of, how we as an MYF have approached talking about inclusion, both LGBTQ inclusion within the church, within the youth group, but also inclusion of anybody. I would say for me, that's probably what I have noticed the most over the last 8 or 9 years with the MYF, is that inclusion does mean everybody. No matter what your opinions or beliefs or skin color or nationality is. And finding a way of bringing everybody together as best we can so that we can love each other and love Christ together. So that's how we'll begin tonight. So I wanted to prepare some questions that the youth have had a chance to kind of look at and get an idea of what they want to, how they might respond. And so we'll kind of go through some of these, maybe not necessarily in the order of what you have there in front of you, but just invite you to, I'll pose the question and invite several of you to respond however you'd like to. So to start off, often when we talk about LGBTQ inclusion, there's a term, welcoming church, that is also kind of included in that conversation. So I'm curious, when you hear the term welcoming church, what does that mean for you? What does that look like or feel like when you hear the term welcoming church? So we can pass around a couple mics there. Whoever wants to start. And you don't have to stand up to answer. You can stay seated to answer.
Well, Jesus says that the most important rule is to love God and then to love everybody else. And so when I think of a welcoming church, I think of loving everybody and not just those that we accept sexually.
To go along with what Simon says, he says to love everyone, love your neighbors. Well, everybody in the community is our neighbors. So when I think of a welcoming church, I always think of every door being open to anyone to be able to walk in, no matter your sexuality, your race, what you believe in, everybody's welcome. I feel like when we sit in that circular sanctuary that we can all see each other, and I always kind of think of it, like I sit in the balconies and look down and just think of it as like we're just one big circular family. Like we can all hold hands in a circle and be there for each other.
To slightly build on what Bree was saying at the beginning, just once you're here, as far as welcoming people in, but then treating them the same way, no matter who you are, what you know about them once they are here.
For me, it's also when when Bethany Concert Choir comes to perform, the families of the people in there come, and not everyone is Mennonite, and but everyone, afterwards, people come up to me and tell me how welcome they felt here, even if they weren't the same denomination, and that means a lot to me, that our church can welcome people even if they aren't the same denomination or think the same way we do.
When you're a junior at Bethany, you take a semester-long course called Church History, and one of the topics that our teacher Dale brought up was the fact that even though you might accept people in a church, they might not always feel welcome because there might not always be someone else like them. So, like, one of the our final for church history is we have to build our own church and create points and like stances on what we believe, things about like baptism and accepting people and things like that. And so one of the points that he always just said, like, even though you might accept people like LGBTQ, they might not always feel welcome because there might not be other people like them there. So I always just thought that that was a very interesting fact because, yeah, even though you might say, like, we accept you for who you are, they might not always just feel as welcome.
So how do you do that? How do you make somebody feel welcome? Or how have you noticed that happening in the MYF? Because as a congregation, we are kind of a mix of different smaller groups. And so specifically for MYF, how do you work at making people feel welcome?
Well, in youth group, we've had people in the past who I've gone to youth group with, and once they've come out or said what they believe in differently, I mean, nothing really changed. I mean, I feel like we kind of all sort of acted the same around them. Things didn't really change. Like, we just accepted them as who they were, and kind of we watched like what we said or like how we felt, or we don't have to have the same beliefs or whatever about everything. Everybody can have their own certain opinion, but I don't feel like in our youth group or in our church people are judged for what they think or how they act. I think that everybody has the right and has the freedom to not be judged when it comes to that, and I feel like they aren't in our youth group.
And then by not judging them, that's our invitation to them that we are a welcoming church and that we accept them and that we are inviting them into God's house.
I know that definitely in our MYF, not everybody has the exact same opinions, but we don't let our difference of opinions get in between, influence that us not being friends. So like all of us in here, we're friends and we all hang out and we all have fun together. And even though we might not agree on everything, we don't let that stop us from having a good time together. And so I don't know where I was going with the rest of that, but yeah.
To kind of build on that, we all get along really well. Not just because we just kind of like, we're like, well, yeah, we have different opinions and we're like okay to settle with that. But like, I think we touched on this on Sunday when Lauren was giving his like sermon thingy, and so it's really just like I think it's really great the way that we interact and we help each other grow, like in accepting people as a whole. 'Cause like I know that if I wasn't like around these people every week, then I wouldn't be the same person that I am today, and I'm really thankful for that. And I feel like that's a really great aspect of like how welcoming we are.
I think we do a really good job here of not avoiding the topic, like what we were saying earlier about the elephant in the room, like to be able to bring it up and to be able just to discuss it in a manner that's like healthy discussion, that's not, you're not really in an argument. I think that's really important. And not that this is the same at all, but many of you probably don't know who I am because I've only been attending here about 8 months, but I never felt separate from this group. Like, I think Tatiana brought me to my 3rd week of MYF, and I didn't even talk to Tatiana that much because I already knew everybody. And like, Like, just immediately, I mean, not that I come from like a different, I don't know, just I grew up going to church, but I never felt as accepted as I did here, like right away. So.
And there's and there's something kind of like what she was saying. Going from Genesis to MYF, I was terrified because I didn't like know what to expect. But like right away when I got there, everyone talked to me. So I think part of being welcoming is like talking to you, not just saying, "Yeah, I'm glad you're here. We'll accept you," but also like talking to them and going out of your way to form relationships with people.
I think that we, like, as an MYF, we are all okay talking about what we believe, which really helps us all feel included because we all have a voice in it. And also, like, in, like, just church in general, we have, like, different Sunday school groups or whatever, like, where different people can go and they talk about things that they all, like, have in common. It's just, like, I feel like that really helps the church include people in a good way.
Like what Jonah was saying, when we talk about things and we invite people in, like, we make it so that when you're going from one group to another, it's not such a big transition as you think, that it's a lot easier because we go out of our way to make nights to get to know each other or, like, have, like, speed dating, things like that. So, I mean, just to have questions, just to, like, loosen up and be able to get to know each other. I feel like the more that we get to know each other and, like, the further into the year that it goes, like, the more and more we feel that it's easier to talk to each other and share our opinions. Like, if any of these people came up to me, like, I wouldn't be afraid to share my feelings with them. Like, they're just like another family to me. It's super great.
So, and we kind of alluded to this a little bit ago, or someone did, but there have been times where we have had LGBTQ youth in the MYF, and over the years, all of their stories have been different. Some of those stories have been, not so great and not very positive, and others have been helpful, and good stories of acceptance and healing. But I don't want to get into those stories, and I mean, and in terms of exposing who those people are, those are their stories to tell. So, as you answer this one, don't use names, okay? But so just kind of a two-part is: have you been in MYF with someone who's LGBTQ, and if so, how did that affect your view of the church, not just MYF, but of broader church in general?
Well, like I said, I've been in youth group with an LGBTQ. When she came out, I don't feel like anything really changed. The dynamic of our group stayed the same. I mean, we all kind of felt just as comfortable around her as before. But I think when she did it, she just came out to, like, our youth group and not, like, I don't think everybody knows about it or did know about it at the time. So I think that just, like, doing, like, the small group on, like, a Wednesday night like she did, like, made it a lot easier to, like, comprehend and, like, get into the swing of things, I guess, just by, like, thinking differently or, like, watching things. Like, you kind of grow accustomed to it. I don't think things really changed.
And I think there's also like knowing that they trust you enough to share that with you means a lot, and kind of goes back to the welcoming. Like, it reassures you you're doing a good job of welcoming someone, that they trust you enough. And I think it is helpful to have another opinion. So then when we were talking about the Bible and biblical text that some people can say goes against it, I appreciated hearing their opinion on it.
I think one thing for me that was really special about this one situation was this person came out to me before they did to the whole group, and just the fact that they trusted me with that really helped me see that they wanted people to know. They didn't want to keep quiet about it, but it was a really, really hard thing, and so it was kind of a test, maybe. And so as soon as she told me, I was very happy, and I mean, I accepted her before, I accepted her after. So yeah, I was glad she did, and I think she was happy with the way that I reacted to the situation.
So we all have different beliefs about many things. But in terms, for you, in terms of people who are LGBTQ, where did you get your beliefs? Or what shaped you the most in your feelings about that? Was it family, the Bible, friends, stories of other places, other people? Yeah, what you don't have to identify what you believe, just what shaped you in that.
I don't know if I can really pinpoint, but I really valued how my parents really just kind of left me to figure it out for myself, and I really am very thankful for that, and just like that style of parenting in general. I've become my own person, and I feel like it's the same with all of my siblings as well. So I was able to form what I believed in. I don't know how I did, but it was nice to not be told what to think, so that I could figure it out and know how I felt about it without being influenced in any way. It was just kind of like, you believe what you want to believe, and I figured it out as I went.
My parents were kind of a little different in the sense that they were like, we will always love you no matter what. Like, my mom has a family member, multiple family members that are a part of this LGBTQ community, and she has been one of the few people in her family to always accept these people. And she always said, like, if you identify as part of this community, just know that I will always love you. I won't kick you out of the house. I will always love you. And I always just really liked that, because she was always like, as long as you don't hurt other people, I'm okay with what you do with your life. And I just really love that.
I definitely think a lot of my opinions and how I view things have come a lot from my parents. I think my mom especially, because when my siblings and I were younger, if we ever like asked a question, my parents were like very open to like answering, and like just I could see what they thought. And then also, like, as I got older in school and we like started talking about stuff, I was able to like hear what other people thought, like people my age, and so like I was able to base my own opinions off of hearing what other people think. And I am very open to like hearing other people's opinions, and I think that hearing what other people think kind of also like just affects what I think, not like in a way where like it completely changes it, but just makes me like think, oh, I can understand why this person thinks that, but I think this. And I just think a lot of that has come from just the way I was brought up by my parents and just school friends and stuff.
Yeah, I was kind of on the same boat with Madison, where my family definitely did impact what I think, but not to the point where they were telling me that this is the right thing and this is the wrong thing, but it was enough that to guide me in a biblical direction where I can make my own decisions. But yeah, I can. like I can make my own decisions, but that was definitely impacted by my family.
For me, up until high school, I was completely oblivious of this entire issue. And then in high school, a couple of my friends who I was really good friends with came out to me, and it was an eye-opener for me. And I had never really talked about it before with my parents. Like, I didn't know what I thought about it. I just knew that I loved my friends, and it didn't really change who they were. And I still wanted to be their friend, and I still love them just as much, no matter who they decided they wanted to be.
I would say very similarly to Jonah and Madison. The first time I remember having to form an opinion on an issue like this was when I was in 7th grade, and we had a boy in our grade come out. And he was a very close friend of mine at the time. And I had never really, had to tell anybody else what I thought about that. Because, I knew what being gay was, but, this is 11-year-old me having to tell somebody, if I'm still going to be friends with that person. Because, people were gossiping about it, and I didn't like that, at all. And I don't know, similar to Madison, my mom did tell me, no matter how you turn out or whatever, you can, she wanted me to know that if I ever felt like I was part of the LGBTQ community, that I could tell her and that she would love me unconditionally. Because, I also know people who have, the influence of their parents saying, we will kick you out, that is a sin, which I think would be a horrible influence to have growing up, actually, just feeling that pressure.
Well, I know, like Ainsley said, our parents were very open to, if we had questions, then we knew that we could go to them and ask them, and they would tell us. And they weren't telling us in a way that was making our opinions, or making their opinions our own. They were telling us in a way that we could create our own opinions based off of what they said. And I remember growing up, I started going to the Boys and Girls Club, and I found out later that a couple of the kids that I was really close friends with came out when they were very little that they were LGBTQ. And I didn't really know what that meant when I was little, but as I've gotten older, I realized that even though I kind of had a concept of what it was, I didn't treat them any differently, and I still accepted them for who they are, even though they did things differently than me. It didn't change how I felt about them. I still feel the same way about them, and I'm still really close friends with all these people.
I kind of was sheltered when I was younger, so I didn't really know what LGBTQ was till I got into middle school. And one of my best friends, he came out to the school and talked about how hard it was with his parents when he told them, because they were not accepting of him and they didn't want him to be that way. And it was really sad because he ended up living with his grandparents because his parents did not want him living with them, which was really, really sad, and it was hard to hear. And I mean, ever since hearing his hard experiences, that's what really opened my eyes that, I mean, we need to accept these people because, I mean, they're one of us, and I mean, they should be allowed to have their own opinions and express their own sexuality their own way, and have people be supporting of them.
How are we doing on time? Okay. Yeah. So we do have a statement, a proposed statement that we're talking about, a statement of inclusion, which says, we believe that all individuals are created in God's image, and all people, regardless of age, gender, race, citizenship status, abilities, or sexual orientation, are welcome as full participants in the life of our congregation. So as you hear this, how do you think that will, making a public statement like that, how will that change how easy it is for you to invite people to church or make people feel like they're welcome here if we have a statement?
Well, I feel like it's really easy to invite people to church here. Like inviting my friend Opal last week, and she hasn't really gone to church throughout her life, but even after we left to go to the St. Olaf Choir concert, we sat there before the concert started, and she commented on how everybody was so welcoming, and even though they didn't know her, they took time to stop and say hello and introduce themselves, and just being able to bring friends here and have them feel welcome and not feel excluded is super, super nice, because you're like, okay, well, I want to take them with me, but I don't have to worry about that. I mean, I can bring who I want, and they can think what they want, but still feel like they're one of us when they're in this building.
I know that I have some friends who go to different churches in Goshen, and I know that some of their churches aren't as accepting of LGBTQs. So I think that if we were to have this statement, it would make it so that the LGBTQs in our community would feel like they would have a place to come and they would feel welcomed, and they wouldn't be judged for who they are and what they believe in, because this would be a safe place for them to come, which I feel like is a very important thing for a church to be.
And the statement says more than just sexuality. It also talks about immigrant status, and I think that's also a big part in our community, and I think that means a lot to a lot of people to know that where they're sometimes not always accepted in the government or other places, I think it's a big, it has a big impact on them to know that we accept them and that we're glad they're here.
Kind of like what Jonah and Savannah said, of like people wanting to come, but this is also like, if there's people in our church, it may make them feel welcome to actually come out and actually say how they feel and how they are and just like what kind of person they are, and feel welcome to be themselves here at church, and not like go to church and like put on a mask and like, this is my church self, and it's like people don't know who you actually are.
I don't think that this statement directly affects the MYF. I mean, it does, but I feel like we've always been welcoming to people, no matter who they are. Whenever someone new walks in the door, I know Dan tries to talk to them, start a conversation with them, and I've really looked up to that and tried to be like that when new people come. Going to new places is not easy, and to have welcoming faces just makes it a whole lot easier, even if they're just asking your name.
All right. Well, thank you, all of you, for your willingness to share and be open, share personally, but also, give us a little window into your families too. Maybe some parents were a little nervous out here, but thank you as well. It's all right. We all survived. And yes, thank you very much for what you shared.
Okay, guys, aren't they incredible? They are incredible. Before we break up into small groups, here are some questions I just want you to think about, and you can talk about anything in your small groups, and you'll just kind of circle up maybe in 5 or 6 people. How do the responses of our youth to the welcoming statement help to shape your thinking on this issue? And also, what questions does this particular session raise for you? These are just 2 clarifying questions that you might want to think about and discuss in your small groups.